All right, welcome back, guys. It's time to talk about Smile. So I just watched this one as well recently, and I think it's decent. It's a decent film, and it has plenty of jump scares. Not all of them landed. Some of those jump scares were very well built up for. Some of them a little bit unwarranted. I like the scenes where there's just tension in you believing that there's going to be something in the corner, something lurking around. But there were not many things smiling at the main characters specifically. And that's one of the things that I felt was really lacking in the sense where you don't see the thing as much as I think it probably should be because the idea is that there's always this kind of stalking creature that follows the main character, and it's eventually going to kill them. And how it kills them is it makes them commit suicide, and the next person who watches the suicide attempt contracts it and continues to perform this chain of suicide attempts. And so this is very much similar to the concept of the horror movie It Follows. I watched It Follows, I think way back, it's like 10 years back. Okay, so it's like 8 years ago. And I really liked It Follows. It was really a very well done. I think it's like a B or indie sort of movie. I gave it a very high rating. There we go, 7. And for good reason, because you can see the idea of It Follows has connected with whoever directed Smile, and they've decided to take concepts from it to continue to remake this sort of a kind of a story of this evil that can contract or be transferred in some sort of way. So It Follows works in the concept of something like an STD, right? A sexually transmitted disease, in the sense where the being that is constantly following the main character is transferred by sexual intercourse. So if you have sex with someone, the next person is going to have it following them. So you want to ideally have some way of having sex with someone else to continue spreading it, and then you avoid it. So the thing about It Follows is that it's very much focusing on the fact that a lot of teenagers are just having unprotected sex and just sex with everyone basically. And so the STD is kind of the concept that they want to show in It Follows. In Smile, however, it works a little bit differently. It takes the concept of the contractable sort of evil, but it puts into perspective the idea that it is something that follows the person who witnesses a suicide. So almost like a chain of trauma that is being passed down from person to person. So this is not like an STD, it's more like a chain of trauma. And so the main character eventually figures out that the only way to stop this thing from happening is either that she ends the chain by just dying by herself. So apparently this thing takes around 7 days to kill a person. So within 7 days, most of the victims have died. So she's actually smart enough to perform an investigation. She actually has a detective who actually listens to her, believes in her. And even though the detective would ideally think that she's just nuts explaining to him that there's this thing that's smiling and following her around and scaring her, um, he still believes in the evidence that he is given in the case where she tells him to pull up some a list of victims, and he follows up an investigation to find out that every person who has died from these chain of events have witnessed another suicide. So it seems like it's too obvious that there's something really strange going on because as a detective, there's no such thing as a coincidence. And I really like the fact that they had that person, a third person who's intelligent, to be in this sort of film. And so I really like that. What I really didn't like is the fact that the main character, Rose Cotter, is an absolute moron in the sense where she is a psychologist. She's a doctor who treats patients with immediate acute and not acute, immediately urgent psychological issues that need addressing, especially suicide victims, victims of rape cases who are escapees, people who escape kidnapping, these sorts of things. So I think she addresses the immediate strenuous cases, patients who are under strenuous cases. And even then, there are some very strange scenarios where she ends up in the room with the first person she sees who commits suicide in front of her by grabbing a piece of glass and then slitting off her throat to create a sort of a smile-like angle. It's very strange because in the room where she has the conversation with this victim, she is she's in a room alone with that person. There's no security. The room does not have glass doors or two-way mirrors. It doesn't have two-way mirrors. So essentially, she's alone with the person who is suicidal, which could be very dangerous because you don't really know the mental state of this person. Like you already know that they're in some kind of duress. And to be alone with that person first of all, you had to be able to defend yourself, which Rose Carter clearly is not capable of. And on top of that, you normally would have someone to observe the situation from the outside, be it a medical staff, be it security, and the intention is you don't know how they may actually try to end their lives, as and when. So you may need immediate medical attention, immediate ways of preventing them, restraining them. So it's very strange that she had the interview alone with this girl in a room with no actual cameras as well to record the footage of the incident. And so when she sees the girl all of a sudden acting strange, screaming and shouting that something is approaching her, she reaches to this phone on the wall and she makes a call to the. She has to make a call. Well, she's literally in the hospital. She could have opened the front door, but I don't know. She has to make a call to get some paramedics to on the scene. And before the paramedics can arrive, this suicidal girl is standing in one corner, smiling at her. She slits her throat and dies in front of her, and ideally that's how she contracts the this evil. And so she's going to continue the chain. She's going to eventually want to commit suicide. Um, but I mean, and sorry, she's not going to want to commit suicide. She's going to be start seeing things where this evil is going to show up in other people's faces, smiling towards her, creeping her out, and it's a very creepy smile, which is the idea of the story. But in reality, it's not actually taking place. She's seeing it all as an illusion. So this thing freaks people out. It makes you see that other people are smiling or coming towards you, but it's all an illusion. There's no real actual thing that's happening in front of her. So all the jump scares are very much an illusion, and that kind of takes you a little bit out of the like like the intensity drops when you realize that, oh, it's all just an illusion. She's just hallucinating everything. There's nothing real taking place in front of her. It's all in her head. So this is almost like, it's not really scary in the sense where there's nothing actually out there. It's all because it's all just happening within her. And finally, the evil being reveals herself in the form of her mother. It sort of takes the form of her mother, which is this lady, and it evolves into this very freaky looking thing, which comes around with long arms and long legs. That part is a little bit creepy, sure, why not? And then its final form is apparently this weird looking thing. So yeah, it has all these final forms, but all of it doesn't amount to much because she's the only one who can see it, and no one else can actually do anything towards it or take any action. So even the detective who investigates, it literally amounts to nothing because in the end, the detective ends up in a perfect situation where he witnesses Rose commit suicide, and so he's going to contract it, and that's pretty much the end of the story. So yeah, I feel this was overall really underwhelming, predictable, and also not that interesting. Like, there's just generally not a very likable character. The main character of Rose is just not very likable. The most likable character in this is Joel, who's the detective who actually took her seriously. So yeah. As for the rest of it, in terms of the score and the graphics and stuff, I think the last creature that appears towards the end and the animation to show it was really well done. There's nothing, no part of this CGI that felt choppy or unrealistic. It really felt like there was just makeup and a little bit of camera technique involved to enhance the tall-looking creature that chases her towards the very end. It wasn't like a very jagged, strange movements that didn't make sense kind of thing. It really felt well. And even the exaggerated smiles from all the characters, I think, are pretty much just done by the actors themselves. So I'm sure the budget required to make this film was really, really low, and I really like it in the sense where it follows the indie kind of concept. Anyone can kind of take it kind of film, yet it's so good. Um, and yeah, we did have some interesting actors as well that showed up. One of them was Cal Penn, I think, as Dr. Morgan, but he had a very minor role, didn't really do much. But what really baffles me in this film is that it involves a lot of doctors. Rose is like a psychologist, psychotherapist kind of thing. There's another Dr. Madeline, there's a Dr. Morgan, and everyone wants to treat the situation scientifically. When in reality, if you actually go and talk to a lot of psychologists, they do believe that there are certain links to these kind of supernatural elements that a lot of the patients do report. And a lot of the times, although these doctors do want to treat them psychologically, they will still lodge investigations if necessary, especially when it involves things like suicide or murder. It's really, really important that they lodge a complaint early because while the patient may seem hysterical, psychological, disturbed, and there's this thing, lurking with them, they feel like they're being watched. More than often, the doctors will interpret it such that there is some stalker out there that's actually after them. There is perhaps someone living in their house that is showing up to scare them because they live in such huge house they can't really find them. So, there are probabilities that there's actual threat out there, and so the doctors would often have someone on the watch. But and also the first victim who comes to report to Rose Carter about the visions that she's been seeing and the fact that she's going to die, the one that commits suicide in front of her, is actually a PhD candidate, and she says it straight up. She's a PhD candidate. I'm not some crazy person who's hallucinating things. And fair enough. As a doctor, you can still believe that they were on maybe on drugs, they could have still been hallucinating, because so what if they're a PhD candidate, right? But for the fact that the patient actually puts that out there, it means that the patient actually is sane enough to understand that there is something wrong with themselves. And patients that can diagnose and say clearly that there is something wrong about them, it is not usual for them to have such behavior, are clear minded in certain sense. So there's something abrupt or some change that is sudden that has taken place in their lives. And so it could have been because of some very strange or immediate trauma, especially people of very high intellect to affect them. It's not it's pretty unusual. If someone is a PhD candidate, this means they've been through an academic life for at least 20 years. So for them all of a sudden to be reporting cases of hallucinations and stuff, especially if you do a drug test and there's no drugs in the system, it's very clear there's something very strange going on. And you have to have a close eye on them. You have to have investigators backing them up. Perhaps there is someone threatening their life. Perhaps there's some kind of childhood trauma that's resurfacing, and they may be a harm to themselves or someone else. You can't really just brush it off and say that, oh, I'm just going to give you medication, everything will be fine. That's usually not how psychologists actually treat people, but maybe there are places where this is still the case, because I do believe that there are parts of the world out there where the psychologists and psychiatric departments don't really take these people very seriously, don't really know how to treat them, and don't really want to spend time on research or actually trying to help these people, and rather they just want to get their job done and go back home. So if those are the cases, and that's what we are watching here, then it is still very obvious that Rose Carter doesn't really have many other people who actually trust her, who actually are willing to take care of her or believe in her. And so she actually has a fiance, Trevor, who is played by Jesse T. Usher, who is A-Train from The Boys. And yeah, it's nice to see him on screen again. This time on the totally different side of the spectrum. Usually he's really just a hardcore villain who pretends to be a good guy, but here he's actually a good guy. And he actually makes the right decisions for Rose Carter, which is by calling the psychologist in to get help for her. But Rose interprets this as a completely wrong situation. She ditches Trevor. She says that he doesn't believe in her, he doesn't trust her, and she wants to just leave and go. The thing I don't understand is that even in a realistic scenario, if your fiance, you know, is in fact taking you seriously, they will still call a psychologist. So it's not like Trevor doesn't care about her. It's not like Trevor is brushing her off and is not listening. Trevor is actually listening, but the only way Trevor knows how to help her is by calling in an actual psychologist, a doctor who knows how to treat her. And so he calls in Dr. Madeline, who is Rose's initial psychologist, apparently. I don't know. It's in America. It sounds like everyone has a psychologist the way we um, here in Asia, everyone has their own barber. So like we all have our own barbers. If you want to cut your hair, you got to go back to the same barber. And if you betray your barber, especially if you betray within the same town, your barber is going to get to know, and they're going to question you with a blade in your throat. So in this scenario, it seems like Rose Carter and a lot of Americans actually have their own psychologists. And I don't know if it's the same case where if you go and see another psychologist, your previous psychologist is going to come after you. But yeah, hilarious to think about. Regardless, so he calls in a psychologist. Rose gets pissed off. Rose goes to a shack and tries to live it off by herself to say that maybe the only way to stop this chain is to kill herself, because all the investigations are not really helping. And Joel tries to come and save her, and she doesn't even scream. Like she keeps screaming, "No, go away! No, stay away! No, go away! No, stay away!" Like some rap like that. But she doesn't really tell Joel, "Stay away." The way this thing works is, if you see me die, you're going to be the next person to die, and this thing is a chain of suicide. Perhaps this chain can end with me, but you'll have to have a build some kind of a case around it to try to end, like close off this thing, because no way anyone's going to believe what you have to say, even if you're a detective. Something intelligent like that. But yeah, characters gotta be stupid, do stupid things. And so the monster is basically having a field day. Like whatever this dark entity or creature is, it's not explained to the very end. There's no real backstory given to it. There's no real solution given to it. It's just very pretty much like, okay, I gotta just kill myself to end it. And the only other person who has escaped this loop is this one other guy who was in prison who admitted to murder. So apparently it was after him. But what he did is, instead of committing suicide, he kills someone else and has a third person witness the murder. And so when the third person witnesses the murder, he passes on the thing to that third person. So he doesn't have to kill himself, he kills someone else. But since, this girl doesn't want to kill anyone else, she basically just has to wait until she commits suicide, and the thing doesn't get passed on. But at the very end, the detective guy does show up, so it gets passed on. Pretty much a pointless thing. There's no real solution to this. It's just a never-ending thing that's going on apparently, and it's going to continue to go on. And that seems to be the story here. So overall, I believe Smile, in terms of its special effects, its music, its jump scares, and all, are pretty decent. I can give it a score of a 1 out of a 2. I don't think there's too many intelligent things regarding the way it works. As for the score and the eerie music, it's also a 1 out of a 2. Nothing too interesting. As for the acting, very basic, pretty much one character, no real involvement of anyone else. Even the character is not really likable. Nothing of her acting is very unique or shocking. It's not like she transitions from someone who's very happy to someone who's very sad or something like that. She just generally looks upset or sad. Just not a very likable person. Doesn't really have a lot of friends who want to help besides Joel, who's just this kind of cute detective who I think is somehow into her ex or something, and that's very easily put out in 1 or 2 scenes. So overall, in terms of the way and intelligence of this film, I can safely rate it a 3 or 4. I'm going to give it a 3, just because this has been done before and way better in It Follows. I highly recommend It Follows. It's a 2014 film. Very simple indie-ish kind of movie. Very simple cast. A lot of them are unknown actors, as you can see. The budget is really small, and yet this film is done really, really well. This thing that keeps on following, and towards the very end, the team is actually intelligent enough to have friends. Like the main character actually has friends, and they actually team up into a perfect scenario where they can actually battle this thing that's after them, and they try to put an end to it. And since it is passed on from, in terms of this STD style, contraction, I think. Um, it's done reasonably well. And so Smile is just trying to repeat the concept with a little bit of twist, saying that it's a suicide, that, trauma that gets passed on or transferred from person to person, but doesn't execute it as well, doesn't really have the story to back it up, doesn't show the things that It Follows showed, in how the cast actually has a plan to defeat the thing. They actually have a team, and all of this is done in an hour 40. Smile is almost 2 hours long. It doesn't have the content that It Follows has. It Follows has far more jump scares, far better scenes in terms of the thing actually following people and scaring the crap out of them. More kills. The thing actually kills more people. Making it just a more captivating horror story with, keeping you on your toes, because people are actually going to die, and it's going to happen quite frequently. And the character actually is intelligent enough to have a team to find out a solution to try to stop this thing, and they actually challenge it. It Follows is just one of the best horror movies, in my opinion, ever made, in terms of the fact that it's indie. If it had the budget or backing of a bigger, something like Conjuring or what, I think this is a clear 8 or 9 out of 10. This is just really, really well done. Smile, on the other hand, takes an already existing concept and doesn't do it justice. So, yeah, that's my rating for this film. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this movie. Let me know if you guys have watched It Follows, because that's a really good movie as well. And if you don't, I highly recommend you do. That's about it from me for this one. Take care, guys.